So, often the people practicing Dhamma seek awakening, enlightenment, wisdom, clarity, knowing, and this is one way of looking at it. But the cessation of suffering takes us to the feeling quality of it. You can speculate about awakening and how awake you are, or half awake, or never going to wake up, or deluded, or think you're awakened. So often people who think they're awakened are generally a little bit loopy, going off. But you can know whether you're suffering or not, know whether there's stress or not. And this is much more, accurate, and also knowing where the ease and the happiness is. So, the Buddha, like many other aspirants, started off on a kind of ideological search. What's the end? What's the meaning of life? Where's the deathless? And the kinds of things that were kind of the menu to how to get there was in that time through basically repressing the body, and then getting your mind to go out of your body into some deathless state. This is going to die, right? So deathless must be get out of this and go there, somewhere out there, and get out of this thing, there. Because this is dying. So, makes sense, doesn't it? So how do you get out of this thing? Well, we'll forget about it, neglect it. I don't care about it anymore, neglect the thing, and try to develop a kind of mind that will crush any kind of physical feeling, particularly pleasant feeling, because that could, really get you back involved in all this stuff. So this is kind of this instinct, and it's actually quite common, across all spiritual traditions, the ascetic self-flagellation and self-mortification. And the Buddha, so he did this to the sort of excellence, and till he was kind of falling over. He was so skinny and emaciated and ragged, and he couldn't even stand up anymore. He just got so wrecked. And then this beautiful, this turning is expressed in different ways. One is a lovely image of this young girl, Sucitto, who brings him some milk rice. So this sense of the human, very simple human metta. The most basic, I feed you. I offer to you this gesture, not just the rice itself, but the gesture. And then taking this, and just kind of reflect on that, the beauty of just that we can do, the connection to, you're another being and some sympathy there, offering. So this is one way it's described, and legendary. And then sitting and getting just enough to come back to some reasonable state of health, and then just recognizing this is just painful, and then the recognition of when he was a little boy sitting under a tree in the shade where it's very hot, and it's in the shade, cool, pleasant, sheltered, safe, comfortable, and feeling kind of at ease. That felt peaceful. And he brings his mind back to that, and just be in that state of mind. Then he can feel his breathing, entering back into that, and then feeling the breathing. Maybe this is it. This kind of pleasure is not a problem. It's actually helps my mind to settle. So coming into the body through this way. And just even in that short anecdote, you can sense the first thing is the gift. Even this great, amazing being, the Buddha, or before he was Buddha, incredible resolve, diligence, determination, all massive qualities, and yet the turning point is the given, the gift. Something like that, and then also the recollection, not of some noble idea or divine revelation, just of being a little boy. And that's beautiful, the kind of human, earthy simplicity of it, the lightness, and there's a kind of young quality to it. It's not serious, it's not intellectual, it's just a simple human warmth and comfort, and feeling that, and then using that as a basis for feeling when you're in that mode, natural quality of breathing in and out, the mind goes to that, settles into it, and then beginning to refine itself, dropping away other concerns, fears, agitations, craving, proliferation, fantasies, malice, and then going with purity, purifying the mind through this pleasure, subtle pleasure. So that's the epitome of the Buddha's transmission. So pleasure as a path to enlightenment. That's a particular kind, isn't it? Where it's sensitive. It's the pleasure of sensitivity. It's the pleasure of feeling safe and held. It's the pleasure of kind of like a present attention into a natural process, which is already given, a breathing in and breathing out. So he's not trying to make it something, get somewhere, work out the meaning of life, resolve his issues with his dad, or whatever. But just that, the pleasure, and using that to purify the negative influences of the mind. So he always said, I teach pleasure. Which was quite mind-blowing in that day and age. People thought he'd gone really slack and corrupted. But it's the recognition the mind settles in this pleasure. It's comforted. Because it's comforted, it doesn't crave. It loses its fear. It loses its guilt, its regret. It loses that. What's that supposed to? It's supposed to be pleasant. To stop suffering is supposed to be kind of nice. And the phrase Nibbānam Paramang Sukham, Nibbāna is the supreme, the highest, the most worthwhile form of pleasure, ease. You can translate it as ease. That's the removal of dis-ease, so the mind is just light. And that's one way of kind of trying to get a feel for it, not just the idea of awakening, the feel of it. Because this strand, this theme, runs through all true cultivation. Admittedly, we may have to definitely meet disagreeable and meet the craving and the fear and the guilt and the worry and all that. And we may meet it and it's not particularly pleasant, but the theme is, as one releases that, there's the quality of pleasure, and that pleasure is something to abide in, to dwell in, to make much of, the word is absorb. So absorb, and this is where the word jhana comes from. So, jhana being an absorbed state. And as one absorbs, the mind becomes unified. Samadhi. And it's said then there's not one part of one's body that is not saturated, permeated, suffused with pleasure. Pleasure born of skillful states, pleasure born ease and spaciousness, mind releasing. And they said this is actually, in the suttas, considered this is not, it's considered essential to experience this quality of light, but suffusive ease, so the hardness and the rigidity and the tension of the mind softens, and then it can, the true, truer qualities can be experienced. So we look for that, and to make much of it as it arises, wherever it arises. It's a theme that runs through, whereas we may even, like it said that the lovely sutta where the Buddha mentions, if your body is relaxed and at ease, you will feel happy, pleasant, and there's no particular need to push the mind into concentration, because the mind that receives and sits in that happiness is concentrated, it's collected. And it gives us another way of understanding what samadhi means. It's good to redress some of these terms, because we're using a translation of Pali, which the Pali words themselves are verbalizations of an experience, right? So you're going through into the verbal, and then even crossing the culture. So concentration for most of us means something that happens in your head. Because when you concentrate on your work, that's what you do. When you concentrate on playing a game of chess, that's what you do. You kind of get it up here, and your brow slightly tightens up, and your eyes sharpen, and you're concentrated on what you're doing. And you get annoyed if somebody disturbs you. And so, when you cultivate samadhi, you can have the same thing. I'm trying to concentrate on the breath. And then, just nearly then, somebody closed the door. Oh, God, close the door. And I'm nearly there again, and somebody shuffled a cushion. All right, shuffle a cushion. Stupid people. You feel it's kind of violent. Stupid people. No mindfulness at all in this place. Can't practice here because of people. Stupid, clumsy, ignorant, heedless people. Not like me. This kind of thing can occur, and you feel, oh dear, ill will, that's not right, is it? And so then the whole thing kind of crashes down. But actually the more fruitful result is to feel happy with other people. To feel kind and compassionate for other people, and to feel befriended other people, then they make a bit of noise. It's okay. It's what bodies do. It's kind of sweet, really. Because you get the sense, when you come down to that feeling level, and one of the most important skills is the skill of opening the heart. And then you begin to experience there's a connection, because when the heart opens towards anything, there's an energetic connection, a sense of resonance with it. So you hear somebody coming, somebody come to practice. Beautiful. Somebody's coming into practice. Oh, beautiful. Rather than somebody bothering me. You just widen to include the realm that you're in, rather than trying to shut it all off. And you may think, well, I'm never going to get concentrated that way because my mind will keep skipping around. No, the idea is that you don't focus on this person, that person, this person, what she's doing, and you focus on the sense of aware human beings, sounds, people settling, people practicing, people being where they are. Nobody's bothering me. Why should I bother? Why should I make a problem out of this? May they be well. Yeah? That's all we need to know this time. And actually the sense of the happiness and the ease of that, your mind begins to settle, and then that becomes your place of your place where the mind unifies. Now if you're always fighting against things, then your mind doesn't unify, because it's creating a self and other, self and the other things that are getting in the way of my wishes. So self, other, that division, that is suffering. Because we have that exclusion experience that I mentioned. You've excluded others, they're other. So that exclusion experience is always marked by a sense of stress. Got to keep them out, don't want them here, leave me alone, I'm in my space, it's okay, you stay over there, that's fine, but don't get any closer. And then that's stressful. You can't really relax. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's like that. But on a retreat, making a group retreat, making a practice out of just softening those boundaries of nervousness and self-consciousness, and just making a practice out of that. Just like to feel comfortable sitting here with other people who are keeping precepts and not going to do me in, rip me off. I think, well, how wonderful to be where there's a situation where everybody's making commitments and working with their stuff. Beautiful. So you can also recollect that. It's skillful. In this quality of seeking or understanding the way to pleasure, to turn situations to make to pleasure, to this subtle pleasure, which is the pleasure of the release of stress and suffering. The release of those boundaries of excluding. So you kind of reflect on it a little bit. Now, conventionally speaking, we have in the Buddhist path, you have sila, ethics, virtue, morality. And again, we can make this into a head thing. What would you do if ants infested your house? Would you kill them? Oh, bad. Wrong. Evil. Bad karma. What would you do if a snake wrapped itself around your mother? Would you say nice words to the snake? Would you tell your mother about the brevity of life and encourage her to practice? What would you do? You think, oh God, moral dilemma. Yeah. So when we get to ethics, you can concoct these incredible scenarios which never happen. My mother never got threatened by a snake. So, but we can concoct these moral dilemmas of what we should do to get it right, to get it absolutely right, because otherwise we, make those moral errors. They count, they add up, and damnation awaits. So this kind of, I don't know, it's a Christian thing that we inherit, some real, trying to get the morality like a absolutely legal court of law to prove you are right, not wrong. And you get these kind of hair-splitting things. But the sense of sila is really based upon to others as to myself. And, treasuring others, treasuring oneself, treasuring the presence of others, their the subjectivity. She too wants happiness, doesn't want unhappiness. She too makes mistakes like me. She too has sorrow like I do. This little creature here doesn't want to die any more than I do. Why should I kill it? Recognizing things as subjective rather than objects of my, I don't like the look of you, pap. It's just an object to my gaze or object to my mind. It's trying to get, that too is a subject. itself. So then we sense of honouring and treasuring things, and then that just getting that and feeling that, that feels beautiful, it feels sweet. I feel good when it's like that. I feel bright. And with that, there's there is a happiness. The connection of subjectivity, coming into true subjectivity, is pleasant. Not false subject. The false subjectivity is the I am, I always, I was, I will be. People think this is me, I didn't do that right. The I am is the false subjectivity. It's a creation. There's a true subjectivity, the presence. We call it citta, awareness, presence, the sense of I. That intimate sensitivity. Right? This has got a vibrant quality to it, and when you begin to sense that in others, you get that connection. The subjectivities sense each other. You sense the subjectivity in another. That's the quality of love, primal sympathy, and that feels good. You feel it's an agreeable experience. Because the lessening of that stress of who's better, who's worse, who's got it right, how am I, what does she think of me, I've got one over him, he's not as good as I am, that kind of stuff, all that agitation. So we kind of get past the I ams that we can carry and invest so much importance in, down to this just fellow sentient being. And then that's agreeable, and then your mind settles, and you kind of realign to that. So when you come to that heart settling state, then you see all these kind of things that are this way and that way and this way and that. You're not going to make a big deal out of that. That's just conditioned. They're like that, Some are dirty or don't smell the way they should. This way, you can't tidy up the world. It's not going to happen, is it? But so with that, you don't need to tidy it all up, because you have that subjectivity. You can let the forms, mental forms, the physical forms of people be what they are, and your own be what it is, because you have that quality within that, as subjectivity and a quality of love, sympathy, respect. Then you feel good. Your mind isn't agitating. This is one way of looking at the principle of sila. So sila, virtue, morality, heavy word, is really the kind of flip side of the Brahmavihara. They're both based on mutuality. So sila generally deals with the protocols and how we navigate this separateness with each other. So a sense of respect, and may I do this, and you're okay, and is it okay to come in, and would you like that? We can negotiating through that, and but that's one side of it. It's how you deal with the external form of this, and the internal quality is a quality of primal sympathy, anukampa, empathy, from which these measureless states, metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha, kindness, loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, being gladdened by the good, and equanimity, being serene and open to the changes of things without getting hooked in it. You allow a person to go through their stuff, and you maintain presence. You don't give up on them, and you don't necessarily condone their actions, but you don't give up on it. This is on them. This is equanimity. So these qualities. And so the Buddha is saying this is the happiness of the trained citta. when we've aligned our citta properly, you will be happy. And it's a happiness that's actually greater because you don't need that much, and it's portable. So it's more secure because it's coming straight from the heart. It's coming straight from where you are. You don't have to kind of buy one of these and sort that out, come out with this, and make her happy by doing this or buying this for her. She'll be happy because she'll like me, and just straight. This is what we like. This quality. And so that sila, and sila is about really, a true. It's also aligned with truth, and truth is also a source of happiness. Truth isn't just about accuracy; it means true resonance. This is how it feels now. This is how it is now. I'm not saying it's like this forever. It's like this now. And anyone you can say that to who says, okay, then you feel connection, you feel happy. This is a friend. So, it feels like this now. It feels horrible, feels awful. And they put it out, and the other person says, yeah, okay, I can receive that, and how's that? With a sense of, that's compassion, isn't it? And then we feel the sense of connection. And even though in some ways, we might feel difficult, awkward, unpleasant, but then there's that pleasure, that subtle ease of having been heard, you might say, in our colloquial language. And then from that, you can settle. My disappointment, my frustration with you, you've received that. Okay, now that tension can dissolve because the boundary has disappeared. We've been straight with each other. So this quality of sila and connectivity, heart connectivity is really so precious because it can, even difficult things, even difficult moods and senses, we can still, if we can find that, then even that we can find a certain sense of resonance and subtle ease. And same with yourself, when you're really honest about yourself, not just opinionated about yourself, but that was a mistake. Right, good. Because now I know. Now I know you don't do that, do this. How are you going to know if you can't make a mistake? How else can you get it right if you can't get it wrong? It's like, how do you know? Like, how do you know what balance is except through, that's the imbalance, oh, the balance must be about here. Well, how much do you allow yourself to get things wrong without some recrimination or shrugging it off or justifying it or blaming somebody or blaming yourself? It's okay, that's a mistake. Okay, now, how did that happen? So, all that we're seeing, this is what brings us to wisdom. So the Buddha is always very clear about this. When someone was able to see an error, a transgression, and acknowledge it as such, he said, "Oh, this is great. This is great gain. Because now your wisdom faculty is a little bit clearer and sharper. So is this great for you? To have seen this we consider this progress. Whereas someone who hides their faults or doesn't acknowledge it and denies it, saying, well, there's not much hope for them. And yet how fearful we can be of getting it wrong. And how fearful we can be of each other. Oh my goodness, he might not like this oh dear, is it okay with monks, what are you supposed to do, because they might get it wrong, and terrible, be offended, terrible, important person like that, you could make a mistake. And you say, well, look, could you just treat me like a human being? I feel much more comfortable like that. and that sense of to others as to myself, just base it on that. And, it may be not quite classical perfection, but we can work with that and sort of tidy it up. So this is a sila and kalyanamitta, friendship. The most important thing, really, is kind of foundational. Because there's a lot of other people around. Jean-Paul Sartre, hell is other people, l'enfer c'est les autres. Well, it sort of points out the limitations of existentialism, because that means there's a lot of hell. But true, the otherness is hellish. The sense of otherness is definitely, but other people don't have to be other in that sense. This is the whole sense of kalyanamitta, how we can begin to acknowledge the other, the otherness, whatever that feels like, and then sort of work through that. And so someone you can do that with is a spiritual friend. Doesn't mean somebody you really feel great about, but someone who you can be open and honest enough to be able to get past the negativities, the projections, the mistakes, the uncertainties, the disappointments, and just hang in there, come through. Which is, so we make the human realm a place. You see, so much of even our interest in, certainly mine, awakening, get out of this, get out of this. It's painful, it's messy, it's confusing, it's deceitful, get out of this. They're saying get out of this body, it's going to die, it has pain in it, get out of it. Well, not quite. Come to the place within it where all that afflictive, negative stuff fades out. Then within it, you're out of it. And say the only way out is in. You go into the heart of it, and you see the shadows, the tensions, the possibilities that maybe I'm not, maybe he is, maybe. Trust the connection, the subjectivity. Trust the truth. Trust the goodwill. Focus on that. Now, of course, with other people, there are people, who we find extremely disagreeable, insensitive, deceitful, malicious, and so on. And do not seem to be inclining towards our welfare at all. So what about that? How do you deal with that? This is where, again, you're beginning to recognize. You start with the fortunate. You recollect the fortunate. And you start to even recollect Buddha. And then probably in many ways, more useful to recollect teacher. Because then you actually have a real human feeling for that sense of that which, whose presence or whose advice, painful things of me have dissolved, truth has arisen. I am grateful, I am glad. You're bearing that in mind. And then you can use that as your basis. And people are disagreeable, unpleasant, jealous, mean, nasty. You come from that place and you think, they too have massive afflictions. They didn't have a teacher. I'm compassion for them. You know, they didn't have anything to set them straight. They got lost in their delusions. I had a lot of delusions, and I've managed to drag myself out of a few. Yeah. So I'm grateful, and I feel a sense of compassion for these beings who are still lost in it. And that's the important cultivation. So when anyone has, the real human quality of the connections, the heart connections, and that are based upon skillfulness, where disagreeable states have ceased, one should remember it, bear it in mind, stay with it. This is the absorbing process. You absorb in the quality, the heart quality that's been established. Now you've all done beautiful things. Yeah. And so just even to have kept one precept. You haven't been absolutely perfect and impeccable in every action, which is what we tend to do. I've done so good, but then I did that. Because I didn't clean the bathroom very well, or didn't get up in the morning and felt grumpy. No, you didn't kill anybody. And you didn't kill an animal. Feel the quality of the harmlessness, that beauty. So even to get one precept. So you take there where the connection, the virtue, the integrity has been established, and you dwell upon that, instead of going to where the faults are and dwelling on them. It's kind of like simple arithmetic. Because wherever you put attention, what you put attention on, that will grow. That will magnify. That we're a dynamic system that accumulates. Put it onto the negative, lo and behold, you'll find many, many things that are wrong with you. Direct it to because the I am itself is a kind of a defended, needy experience. You can't really get a lot of great feeling out of an I am. But you come to the heart of this heart experience, a sense of mutuality and respect and harmlessness, and for one moment, dwell upon that, make much of it, that grows. And as it grows and you embody it, as you bring it into your body, you begin to feel certain tensions, edginess, grumpiness, begin to cease. So it has a bodily effect. And so it accumulates, and that means as it accumulates, you've got greater potential for happiness, for ease, and for this quality of release and samadhi. So it's this step at a time. But every step you select and you tune into the fortunate, the blessed, the happy, in that skillful way, you dwell upon it, make your mind rich with it, and it leads on. That's the process. Sila goes like that. And your mind isn't jumping around because it settles. And if that settling can come, you begin the process of embodiment, which we've said a few things about. Taking that tone, that energy, that settledness, and not just splurging it, like, I had a great day yesterday, whoopee, but feeling your body within that, the muscles, the tissues, the energies, and inhaling it, so you can embody this quality of ease, because it's an energy. And energy crosses between the mental aspect and the physical aspect. That's the embodiment principle. The energy crosses the boundary, and the unification of body and mind is called samadhi. So, it was always expressed in bodily terms. These jhanas are always expressed in bodily terms. One's body is pervaded with pleasure. One body experiences bubbling like cool water running into a pond. It's very tangible. Because we're dealing with experiences that have physiological effects. But you need to linger on it to get it to happen. It's not just an idea, to linger on the energetic and the agreeable experience and select, dwell upon it. Kalyanamitta, skillful spiritual friend, is considered to be one of the essentials for liberation. There are 4 essentials for stream entry: to hear the good Dhamma, to practice in accordance with the Dhamma, to cultivate clear, proper attention, and to have a spiritual friend. When you look at that, you realize, well, to hear the good Dhamma, you hear it from a friend, a spiritual friend. To really hear it, rather than read it, to hear it in your ears, in your heart, in your body, you need a spiritual friend. So, to hear the good Dhamma, you need a spiritual friend. And that helps your attention to get your attention to be clear. You want to focus on those qualities that the spiritual friend presents, instructs, even embodies. Pick it up. Then your attention becomes clearer. You see what to see and what to not make an issue out of. What to see and what to not bother yourself with. And then this is practice in accordance with Dhamma, is that process. Give attention to that which causes skillful states to arise. That's practice in accordance with Dhamma. So this all comes down to this same matrix of human connected ease, happiness, energy, respect, in that way. Mind, when it absorbs and settles into that, settles down, and this is what is called samadhi, unification. That also is a pleasant experience, agreeable. So it's important to acknowledge this, because so often you go, well, if you experience pleasure, don't get attached to it. Careful of pleasure, you might get attached to it. Feel happy, don't get attached to it. I've been working 6 years to get a moment of happiness. Now it ain't been easy, it's in a struggle. Now it's kind of whipped away from me, like, there it is, but you can't have it anyway. Oh, dear. How heartless can you get? So, because we want the nice wisdom, more important than happiness. But wisdom is the point of wisdom is to discern where stress ceases. So you're wise about where your happiness is. That's wisdom. Wisdom is to become theoretical thing, abstract concepts. It's about discernment between this is skillful, this is unskillful, this leads to my well-being, this leads to my ruin, this makes me feel good in a skillful way. That's what being wise is. It's not incredibly intellectual experience. You can, but practice, it's down to acknowledging what's happening in the citta and tuning in to where it feels good. That's called wise. So wisdom makes you happy. Or it allows that to be sensed. So this really is the foundation. And how important it is to discern that. I think, I speak for myself, it's coming from my particular culture and conditioning, it's very much, it's a sort of on your own, the world is a mess, on your own, sort yourself out, get what you can, do your thing, It's a kind of isolationist experience, conditioning. And then, so when I first, so you don't have a strong relational field, like you notice in the situation in Buddhist India, where people are really connected and bonded to each other, family, village, clan, caste, everybody belongs to everything else. Village, kids are running around, they belong to everybody. There's that sense in which you're not boxed up in little houses, kids run around and play with other kids, and it's all mingling together, And even they take that even to the when the teacher takes the disciple, you come and live with me. And so the original foundation of teaching was that the disciple shared the teacher's dwelling. You might have 2 or 3. Get up in the morning, okay, sort things out, get some water together. That's, it's not going to a lecture. You're actually living with this person and give them a foot massage and get the robes ready. You're bonding, and that was considered the proper way to live. And to not just to hear the teaching, but also to feel the humanity and to also be able to participate, because you put some effort. You don't see the teacher as some kind of theoretical object, but you support their humanity. And that's considered the proper way. If you see the teacher's sick, you go and heal them. You don't think, oh well, get another one. So they're not kind of machines, And so you have that sense, and it brings out the best in you. You develop a kind of simple, I too can do a little thing like sweep the floor, It's not kind of, and that quality of kindness and goodwill and respect is considered to be the appropriate mode to dwell in the teaching situation. So here, with generosity, people offering food, sharing, this kind of things is that's a simple representation of the model. And my teachers were my school teachers, who were okay, I guess, but basically, shut up, boy, do this, detention, didn't corrected you. You didn't have a human relationship to them. They're information. And I think they were quite reasonable people. Actually, didn't do anything. But you weren't supposed to, do anything more than that. You didn't go to your headmaster and give him a foot massage. So you come to a monastery. I went to the monastery when I turned up at this monastery in Thailand. Okay, monks, serious people, monks, serious moral people, dear. But those they give you a little kuti to dwell in, and it's quite, and with the Thais are so kind of mingled that they encourage you to separate a little bit, to be a bit more separate, because they so bond with each other. They kind of like to, even the men like to hold each other's hands, and they giggle, and they really they just cool down a bit, because you can just kind of play, and you can see adults just playing with each other, which you don't do in England. So a sense of just cool it a bit. But if you're already half frozen emotionally, and you get into a chiller. So I just feel this extreme isolation and loneliness, because there's nobody, you won't talk to anybody, nobody see you. And then occasionally the samaneras would come by, and they'd give you some food, but then the nuns would come by, and this kind of, because you're not supposed to look at them, look at you, so you feel a bit like nervy. So put down a cloth, and something's going to go wrong here. So you get this kind of fear of people, and then I'd lie down on it in the evening, and you just have the wood floor, and it's a rattan mat. So it's even just not cushion, it's rattan. like reeds, yeah, on a wooden floor, and lie down on this floor. Oh, so hot. You didn't need any blanket. You lie there. You feel something. Cockroaches nibbling your feet. Because they come out at night, they get the hard skin off the feet and nibble them. At least somebody loves me. You get to kind of enjoy it. Because there's some sense of some being recognises me. And they were quite respectful. You know, they weren't, they just take the hard skin. I didn't need it. That's fine. They didn't crawl in my eyes. And okay, to have a bit of foot, that's fine with me. So you got some sense of a, you know, another sentient being. Why do I feel happy? So it was just a sense of, you know, I think these creatures are getting some benefit. They're creatures, they're alive, they're seeking food, they're looking for things. They're not out to do anything nasty, they just want to get their food. Fine, they can have a bit of my dead skin, no problem, you know. And then you can relax a sense of nasty, cockroach, dirty, filthy stuff. Just the sense of contact, nibbling away. Okay. So, you know, you could linger on the idea of, you could, you know, sit up all night swatting cockroaches. But you realise after a while, you know, it's their territory. You know, we share this earth. So what? And you get to relax that. And so a sense, even with that, you get a sense of the non-violence and non-discrimination. You feel quite, you know, quite happy to just have that relationship. So it's just detecting that thread and understand. So, you know, we said pain isn't necessarily suffering. You can experience pain, but actually, instead of suffering is exclusion, excluding. So when we resist pain, which is natural, then you generate suffering. Is it possible to go against that, you know, physical pain and start to? It's just what happens to bodies. It's not trying to do anything, not trying to kill me. It's just doing what it does and release. And then, you know, the painful mental stuff. This is a disagreeable mental feeling. If I keep fighting it and resisting it, then this tension and nastiness occurs in my mind. Why don't I just relax, find out where I feel comfortable, stay there. That's my business. That's the business of my chitta's health. Don't keep giving attention to this stuff. And it dissolves. Because all the negative mental stuff is created by the mind. The mind isn't creating it. It doesn't have to be there. Right? So if the mind does its proper duty, which is to attend to this place of ease, then we're not finding ourselves obsessed with what we did wrong, what other people are, and so on. And that's our process, to acknowledge, but also to return to the goodwill. And if there's negative feelings still arise, then you have to include, you have to open, and say, okay, she didn't treat me well. I do feel difficult feeling with her. I could stay with this, or I could say, I have no more issue. I'm not making anything more out of it. Let her be the way she is. You know, she can't take me away from this inner quality, my own value and worth. So we practice like this. So, you know, then other people are, in a way, you know, they are practice. They are the practice whereby we experience the sense of humanity, real humanity, humble, acknowledging everybody's got their stuff, nobody's ideal, real humanity, and in real humanity is the seed of awakening. Then we begin to put aside the blaming and accusing, and the jealousy and the fear, and the nervousness and the sense of I'm not good enough, and we to reside in that, and the mind begins to release. And you see, with the other, there's something to learn about where I'm still opinionated, where I'm still defensive, I'm still nervy, I'm still, comparing and contrasting. Something to learn here. Where does that occur? Is she really like that, or do I feel she's like that? What is it in me what's in my mind that's saying she's so conceited and up in herself? What does that? Do I need to have any judgment of another person? So it also helps to just prioritize the citta of each other's cittas rather than each other's karmic patterns, inheritances. Sometimes, as I do, when you listen to people's stories, you think, yeah, no wonder she's a bit grumpy. Kind of betrayed, beat up, yeah. No wonder he's a little bit, insensitive when you listen to some of the stories. And then compassion. I always like to recall the story of Baldin Gyatso, who is a Tibetan monk who spent 30 years imprisonment in Tibet. The Chinese authorities put him in prison because they asked him to denounce his teacher, to say his teacher had been a spy. And he said, well, no, he's not. He's not a spy. So they said, well, they beat him up. Said, you have to denounce your teacher. He said, well, but it wouldn't be true. I can't say what isn't true, because it isn't true. I can't formulate lies. So if you want to know about my teacher, he's this. So they beat him up again. And then he got put in prison and tortured. Escaped, so then he got beat up some more for escaping and tortured and terrible things. When you read the book, they put an electric cattle prod in the mouth so all the teeth get blown out, and other people were getting starved, and people were encouraged to tell lie, to inform on each other. So the encouragement was you should try to denounce your fellow cellmates. Otherwise, if you're not denouncing anybody, then you get beaten up. So he got beat up a lot. And he wasn't the only one. Many of them died in those prisons, and starving and various things. And eventually, he's been there 30 years. And he said, he was some 60 odd. He said, look, you've been beating me up for 30 odd years. If you like, you can do some more. But I'm an old man, just might as well let me go home. And I think that they did. And he managed to escape from Tibet, and he went to see the Dalai Lama. And he said he had this question. He said, I've got this kind of worry in my mind, because I'm not certain whether at any moment I might have lost my sense of compassion for my prison or my tormentors. You know, I might have slipped away from it, that sense of compassion, because that's what kept him alive. That's what kept him alive. That is, he didn't let the heart go down. You know, he didn't let it die. Didn't let it feel closed down in hatred and ill will, or defeat and misery. It's kept the heart bright with compassion, and that's what kept him alive. Survive, you know, without going mad or embittered, to come out and even be a sense of concern over whether he'd been compassionate enough. You know, that's you know, that's pragmatic. It's not just a nice idea. It's what keeps people alive through these miserable situations. And it does. It does. And so, you know, this is to remember this, because you all have that. It's natural. You all have that sympathetic sense. You all have some sense of empathy. You wish to be friendly to each other. You know, you don't quite know how to do it, but you maybe something you just wish. You don't want to feel enemies. Tune into that, even the wish for goodwill. Tune into the sense when you see, you know, someone else that seems to be, you know, sitting, looking good. Sense of, oh, good for her. You know, tune into other people rather than ignore them, shut them out. In this way of Dhamma, then other people are a blessing to you and will make your heart rich and strong. So even, you know, when people part and separate, the nature of our minds is we can retain, we can absorb into what's been given, what's been shown, what's come up in ourselves in the presence of others, in the shared struggle and practicing together. We can still bear that in mind. We can feel the resonances of that, just as you can feel the resonances of your grief and your hurt. Tune into the resonances of your happiness, your virtue, your friendship, your integrity, and that won't leave you. This is what we can do for each other in this life. So offer this for your reflection.